How's it going? Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today and welcome to this amazing webinar. Let me see how many people we have in the room right now. 11 people. Awesome. So, yes, let's just wait a few more minutes until, more people get into the room. So in this next 5 minutes, I'm just going to give like a short introduction. So we have prepared a very special content for you guys today, and I'm very excited. Hi, Sean. Thank you so much for being with us today, for accepting our invite. We're very happy to have you here.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And guys, Sean is our special speaker today. He's the SVP of Delivery at Gas Logics. He's based in Toronto. He's in Toronto right now. I'm in Vancouver. So he's a startup coach, has over 20 years of experience, so has lots of great insights to share with us today. I'm very excited to learn everything. So I haven't introduced myself yet, but because I guess most of you know me already. But if you are new to Premin, I am Juliana Moraes. I'm the Premin community leader at VanHack. And today, the topic today is all about, startup world in Canada and how to be, successful in a Canadian startup environment. And as you might know, startup market in Canada is growing so fast. There are lots of, job opportunities out there. So, as you guys looking for your dream job abroad and looking to prepare, it's always good to be up to date with the market trends. And so we're going to be starting soon. I just, just have a couple questions here before we start and wait for more people get into the room. So let me see. Let me see here, guys. Please let me know on the chat if you guys can hear me well. Say hi to us. And then we can test if it's working. Also, I have a couple questions here. Hi, Fabio. Hi, Eduardo. Thanks for joining us. Awesome. And okay, so I have a couple questions here. Tell me, where are you guys from? I always like to know that. Hey, Paulo. Hi, Luis. Type in the chat for us. Where are you guys from? Brazil, Venezuela, Brazil, India. Awesome, guys. A lot of people from South America. That's so cool. Okay. India as well. Nice to meet you guys. Okay. And so my next question is, what do you guys do and how many years of experience you have? I guess you guys in the IT industry, but yes, type on the chat for us what you do and how many years of experience. I'll give you a couple more minutes. Six years of experience, Carlos. Okay. Okay, so we have .NET developer, software engineer, software developer. Wow. Cool, guys. 9 years of experience, 13, 18, 8 years. Lots of great talents here. Amazing. Machine learning, 4 years. Great, guys. That's so exciting. So it seems you guys already have lots of experience in the field. That's amazing. And Okay, so I think I'm going to stop talking right now, but just to give, general format, you guys might be used to our webinars already, but it's going to be about, 1 hour, like 40 minutes presentation, and we're going to open up for questions in the end. So please make sure you contribute with your questions. We want to hear it. So write it down in the chat. I'm going to be here assisting with the questions and everything you guys need, but I'm going to stop talking right now. I'm going to pass to you, Sean, and thank you so much for being here again.
No problem.
Mhm.
Thanks for everybody to join. Hopefully you get some value out of this. As Juliana said, I'm here to chat about what does it take to be successful in the Canadian startup environment, particularly for folks that are coming from abroad and joining us here in Toronto from elsewhere in the world. I have whoops, hold on a second here. There we go, wrong place. There we go. Mm-hmm. Just kind of for a quick agenda here, just talking through a few lessons that I'd like to share with everyone today. Just start with a bit about me and the tech firms I've worked for. That'll give you a sense of what my experience is here and the kinds of companies I speak for. I'll talk a little bit about the talent market in diversity here in Toronto, which is one of the big attractions of the company, or the city, I should say. I'll also talk a little bit about the common technologies, the ones that I've seen that are very common here. Talk a little bit about Canada versus the U.S. Obviously Canada and U.S. have a long common border, and being so close does affect life here in Toronto in some ways. And talk a little bit about what to expect as a new arrival, and a little bit of what I've seen in the Toronto startup business culture. On those last 2 points particularly, I took some time to survey some of the folks that we've got working for us right now and their experiences in terms of joining our firm and either moving here in the past or moving specifically for us. So I'll share some quotes from them that hopefully will give you some idea of what it's like to move here. Okay, so moving on. Just take a quick couple minutes to talk about myself. My name's Sean Doran. As Juliana said, I have the pleasure of have been in software delivery for about 20 years now. I joined software companies in the mid 90s, just as the internet boom was taking off. I am like you, also an immigrant. I came to Toronto from Chicago. Maybe not as big a cultural shift as you guys have seen or will see when you come here, but one nonetheless. Since I've arrived in Toronto, I've worked for 3 main tech companies. The first being Wave Financial. Wave Financial does small business software for global customers. We ran as a private company for 5 or 6 years, and they recently went public in the spring for a little over $500 million, which is very exciting. I said they went public. They actually were purchased, but did have an exit for a little over $500 million. I spent about a year at Event Mobi, heading up their engineering and software delivery organization. They do event tech, a stalwart company here in the startup company. No venture capital with them at all. Everything has been organic growth, which is an interesting contrast to a VC company. And not quite a year ago, February this year, I joined a company called GuestLogix, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a couple minutes. Broadly across the experience that I had in those 3 companies, I've led software delivery from companies of as small as 20 up to about 150, and across their growth technologies. At Wave, when I joined, the department I led was about 20 people, and we scaled that to about 90 by the time of 2017. I've done a lot of hiring through the Global Talent Stream, the Canadian government's program to bring in talent from everywhere in the world, and we've brought more folks in. I've personally brought more folks in from VanHack than any other source. So there's a lot of appetite on my part and a lot of my colleagues' part to access worldwide talent and really show off the value of Toronto and bring folks in. I am what's politely referred to as post-technical, meaning that I used to be a developer, but I don't code professionally anymore, which leads me into why do I have the strange title of SVP of delivery? And honestly, that's a title I made up for myself. And I think it's important, though, to explain what it is, because I think it can give you a bit of a sense of how we think about software delivery here in Toronto and how the startups are structured, right? So I'm a big believer in to be effective in terms of software delivery, product management, product design, and software development need to go hand in hand to deliver great outcomes for our customers. In the travel space we're at, a traveler using our software as they fly around the world doesn't care whether somebody made a poor UX decision, a poor product management decision in terms of defining a requirement, or there's a bug in the code. They know it just doesn't work. And conversely, when those things come together really well, we have a great platform that satisfies our customers. And so it's important that we emphasize the collaboration amongst those three groups. And we organize ourselves in small poly-skilled teams that have representation of all of those fields, as well as supporting fields like testing and data science and so on, depending on the individual team. And all our teams are agile first. From a methodology perspective in Toronto, the methodology wars are over. Agile won. Everything else is a bit of waste of a time, right? Doesn't mean we're ideological about it, but we have a strong focus on kind of small poly-skilled teams as the right way to deliver good software. All right. Perfect. Just to tell you a little bit more about Guest Logics, and I think give you a bit of a sense of the kinds of companies that are going on here in Toronto. The startup scene has really taken off in the last 10 to 12 years, and we need a bunch of new technologists to join us. Here at Guest Logics, what we do is write a platform for airlines to offer products and services to their passengers throughout the journey. So what does that mean? You've had a long, hard week at the office. You're driving out to Pearson Airport here in Toronto. You're running late for your flight. Our platform will offer things like valet parking or priority access to security lanes. Those are things you might not buy ordinarily, but have high value to you in that context to avoid being late. You arrive at your gate. You've run out of time to buy any food. Why can you not pre-order your food on the app itself, and the flight attendant just comes and delivers to you your drink, your food, your meal, whatever you've ordered? And the third major pillar of our content is when you arrive in your destination, what are the things to do in that destination? So in this case, maybe you're coming to Pearson, you're coming to Toronto. Why not check out the CN Tower? Why not check out Niagara Falls? Or even better, we know what people like you have done in Toronto, so we can offer through collaborative filtering services and experiences and tours that would be appealing to you. We have a pretty exciting team here. We are, as Juliana said, headquartered in Toronto. This is a team photo we just recently took, and you can see the little frame around me. We have a fun team here in Toronto. We're about 45 to 50 people. We have a few people beyond that, but I'd like to say we're all in Toronto, but we're from all over. And here's just a couple of the different countries or regions of countries that our staff come from. And I think all of the countries that were mentioned by attendees today, we have someone on staff, with a potential exception of Venezuela. I don't think we have any Venezuelan folks on staff. If anything, this understates the number of different countries we come from. We don't ask that question when we hire, so this is our best guess. But some folks came here when they were kids. Some folks came here when they were in university. Some folks came for previous employment. And we've brought several folks over, including some from VanHack, directly to join us. And as I mentioned earlier, to prepare for this seminar, for this webinar, I should say, I sent out a survey to a selection of our staff. It came from all over the world. and just ask them some questions I thought would be interesting to pass on to you and kind of really form the framework of the presentation I give today. First and foremost, this is an employee who was just talking about that exposure to different backgrounds and the joy and the positive feeling that came from seeing that not just in the personal background, in the business background, but also the personal background. Our goal when we show our team photo across everyone is that any of our candidates who are coming to apply for us can see someone that looks like them in the crowd, right? And that's really what we have a strong focus on, and we think it's tremendously important for our success as a company. And what's true for us is true across all of Toronto. We need a ton more folks, and I'll give you a little illustration of what do I mean by that. So this is some talent research that I did, again, to prepare for this. Just comparing two markets across North America in particular, Toronto and the San Francisco Bay Area, what is often referred to as Silicon Valley. The first column there is how many technical degrees were assigned in 2011 to 2016. You see almost as many in Toronto as in Silicon Valley. The main feeder universities here in Toronto were University of Waterloo and University of Toronto. But in terms of tech jobs added from 2012 to 2017, Toronto actually outpaces Silicon Valley, which is pretty exciting and illustrates the amount of growth that we've got going on here. But what's super interesting about that is it set Toronto up to, instead of having a brain drain, to actually have a brain gain, right? A bunch of talented people like the folks on this webinar and the folks that have already arrived are enriching our tech community here, and it's super exciting. And people in my seat have a strong recognition that to maintain the diversity we want to maintain, to get the talent we need to get, we need to go to the global talent stream and worldwide talent in order to achieve that. And what's true in tech is really true across Toronto. I'm sure you've seen similar statistics of yourself as you've done your research, right? Something like half or almost half of the population of Toronto is foreign born. Again, some of those folks may have come as kids, but lots of them have come more recently. About half of the population is what in North America we refer to as a visible minority, which simply means you don't look like me, frankly. You don't have a European background. And that has a big change for Toronto, right? And you can see it every day on the subway. You can see it every day. And it's really enriched Toronto and made it a much better place. What's also interesting about Toronto is that there's people from all over the world, but there isn't really a dominant culture. If you go to some cities, there's elements of diversity, but it is narrow from particular locations, right? But when you see the number of different people who've come from a number of different countries, it really gives Toronto, I think, a unique position, even in the world, about openness to immigrants, openness to talent to joining, and fitting into the overall culture we have here in Toronto. Whoops. Okay, so moving on, talking about tech here in Toronto, right? And the question that comes up from a lot of people when we are interviewing is, and a desire in lots of people we interview coming from abroad is really about the modernity of technology here in Toronto, the kinds of technologies that we're focusing on, I was looking for some statistics in terms of language and frameworks and so on that were used across Toronto, and I couldn't find anything useful. But the impression that folks have had coming into our company has been it's been a refreshing change in modernity. This is one of our tech leads from Brazil, who's talking about back home, and we see this. We interview lots of folks, although everyone's individual experience could vary. A lot of Java developers, a lot of maybe some older technologies here. But this developer talking about the newness of the technology and the excitement of that, and really shifting from a position where he was doing all the teaching, where he still does some teaching, but is learning a lot from folks across the organization, right? And which is very rewarding for me and exciting to see, and hopefully part of the attraction coming to Toronto. Across those 3 startups that I've worked in, I think Python and Ruby are the primary languages that people are using to do SaaS-based companies here. Here at GuestLogix, we do have some .NET in play too. That would be a little bit of an outlier across Toronto's tech, but there is some there. From a JavaScript perspective, React, we're moving into Vue, and there's certainly lots of Angular. From a mobile perspective, certainly Objective-C has definitely faded. Swift is very common. This transition to Kotlin from Java is ongoing. We have both in our shop right now, and we see lots of people doing some interesting things around React Native through React Native. Everything here, all of the startups, all of my fellow colleagues across different companies here, we're all cloud native, all AWS, and really CI/CD and automated testing are everywhere, right? That was a big part of what we're doing here. It's how to be a professional developer nowadays, and it's really the expectation across the whole tech scene here. And there's lots of experimentation going on, opportunities to use things like Go, and AI and a bunch of other things, right? And so while I don't have specific statistics across different technology companies here, which they're using, I think this is pretty representative of what you'd see in the stacks across the tech companies. I think bearing out another quote from one of our devs who joined us and is really finding a much greater openness to using some of the state of the art and cutting edge technology, right? We're not as far along in AI here at GuestLogix as I would like, but we're going down that path. It's not an alien concept. We're active in this space, and there's several other very active and successful AI startups here in Toronto. The growth that I've seen in the 10 years that I've been in Toronto in this space is dramatic. You do not need to go down to Silicon Valley to use the latest technology. You can get it here in Toronto, which is exciting. Okay. I will say that set of technology there is some selection bias based on my experience in startups, right? We've got folks companies that are 6, 8, 10 years old, right? Sure, there's some legacy code, but nothing like the big enterprises. But even if you look for companies from a broader perspective, all of the big banks and all of the big insurance companies are really trying to tap into this tech field in Toronto. They see the amount of talent that we've got in this startup space and are desperate to tap into that. So all the big banks, all the big insurance companies are opening up innovation labs. They're trying to get progressive. They're trying to get more active, which is exciting to see. Some competition for us in terms of talent, but we still think the startup space is more exciting. But even here in Toronto, even the big enterprises are making good progress around getting more technology savvy. My next topic, just wanted to chat a bit about Canada and the US. I'll leave out any sort of the politics between Trudeau and Trump or what have you, and just talk a bit about from the marketplace perspective. One of the interesting things I found as an American coming up into Toronto was the number of Toronto startups that frequently have a strong focus on the US market for customers. That shouldn't be any big surprise. Canada is a little bit more than 1/10 of the size of the United States. And so there's this huge market that speaks the exact same language and culturally is very similar, and is a great market for Toronto. And I think that's really fed a lot of growth here in Toronto, is that access to that market through NAFTA and other things, right? It's a big advantage. Maybe perhaps similar to companies coming into Europe, maybe tackle Ireland, even though it's a little small than some of the other European countries. It's a nice bridgehead into that marketplace, right? And what's interesting about that is how it affects how costs are viewed above and below the border between Canada and the US. This is a chart again from that same tech talent marketplace assessment, and it maps on the left side in US dollar average labor costs for software engineers, and across the x-axis on the bottom, a relative qualitative assessment of talent. I think, given the strength of Silicon Valley and Seattle, they are the furthest right in terms of access to the talent, but they're also way up there in terms of costs. And you'll see down where I've circled Toronto, you'll see several other Canadian cities, Ottawa, Montreal, Vancouver. And what's that meant is that from a access to the US market, as it is relatively inexpensive to come into Toronto. And again, this cost structure is on the US dollar basis, which means because of the relative strength between the Canadian dollar and the US dollar, access to talent and staff in Canada is relatively inexpensive. And what that means is, in a good way for Toronto, is that US VCs and investors are heavily involved in the Canadian startup scene. As through the journey at Wave, several large and highly regarded US VCs became involved in Wave and funded the development of that team, of that city. So although Canada has 34 million people or so, it actually has access to a VC and investor base of that plus the 308 million people that are in the United States. You will hear Canadian entrepreneurs and founders at times a little frustrated in terms of wanting to develop more of a Canadian VC environment here, where there's more funding coming in directly from Canadian investors. Again, in my 10 years here, I've seen that develop as more and more Toronto success stories have happened. More money is becoming available, and some of those successful folks are now founding their own VCs and are particularly active in C and A and B raises. But the big checks, the US VCs, have a big role to play in the growth of the market up here. The other side of that, of course, is there's quite a few Canadian technologists who move down to the States. They get have an appeal to go down in Silicon Valley. And so the US startups and tech companies do recruit heavily in Canada. And again, from my seat, it's an opportunity. It's another competitor for me in terms of accessing talent. In addition, all of the large US tech companies have a presence here in Toronto, and most of them are increasing that presence. Amazon, Google, Facebook, et cetera, the names go on. You've Toronto and University of Waterloo both run very strong co-op programs, so you can work while you're going to university. And several grads from those schools have been very successful down in Silicon Valley, so that recruiting pipeline is quite strong. And there's a fair few of us who've come up north from the United States up to Canada. There's much to appeal to an American about living in Toronto too. All of which is to say that there is a strong cross-border linkage in tech between the two countries. All right, so we've got some folks from Brazil and India and Venezuela and Nigeria. I thought it would be good to just talk a little about some of the things you might expect on arriving in Toronto. And this is my one slide where, because I can't do transitions in the webinar software, I will miss some of the effect. But the one thing, people aren't kidding when they say Toronto is cold. The lake does freeze. We do have streetcars that run through the snow. We do have people wearing parkas. We all wear parkas, like this woman in the upper corner. But, it is Toronto. It is cold, and it's really part of the lifestyle to get out there and enjoy it. So that main picture there is the outdoor ice skating rink near City Hall, which looks crowded nearly every day, right? So we do live in Canada, and it is cold. And a few of the folks coming from not as cold places have some advice for you, in the sense that, really take it seriously. The weather app is your best friend. and you'll see some crazy Canucks, some crazy Canadians who will, come to work in shorts when you're bundled up in your parka. Pay no attention to them. Keep yourself warm. Precaution is better than a cure. It's easy to buy your winter clothes. Do it when you get here. Several of the folks from Brazil and India and Nigeria have said whatever is available in those warm climate countries is probably not strong enough for the Canadian winter. So definitely make that part of your budget as you go forward. There's much to like in Toronto, even whether you like winter or not, there's lots of things to like. One of the challenges we've seen, and another piece of advice from the folks that we've brought in recently, is really around real estate and transportation. Not quite as much as Vancouver, where Juliana is, but not far behind. Real estate prices in Toronto are challenging. They are quite high. And that ties into transportation, because many of the folks that we've come in recently have struggled to find a good place, and finding a good place near transportation is key. Obviously, driver's license, and North America is a driving culture. Toronto has a pretty good transit system, but finding a place near that can be difficult. We hear stories that if you go find an apartment, if you wait to think about it, the apartment will disappear on you. There's some very positive things about Toronto. This is one of the challenges. So the advice from our folks was, really take a look and understand where the TTC is. That's our Toronto transit system, buses, streetcars, and subway. But it makes a big difference in terms of your commute times to where you're at. So it is worth it to do the research to that. And I'm sure VanHack has got lots of resources to help you do that kind of research. But it can make a big difference into your ability to kind of connect in and settle into the system here. One of the things that we do when we ever have anyone joining, we try to pair them up with someone who has come from the country that they are coming from. So, as I said, Brazil's, Nigeria, India, we all have those folks. The rules around, as an example, getting your driver's license transmitted vary from where you're coming from, and who better than somebody who's recently done it, having coming from those countries. So there's lots of folks out there, there's lots of research out there available. Take use of it, and that'll really help you settle in as fast as possible. Okay. So I wanted to kind of wrap up in the next kind of 5 or 10 minutes and just kind of run through some things that that I think are representative of the Toronto business culture for startups particularly. Again, keeping in mind the kind of companies that I've got the most experiences with. And I would say the enterprises, big banks and so on are in this direction, but maybe not quite this far. And again, phrased all around a quote that we got from one of the folks who's recently arrived for us. So first is really from a flexibility perspective. The way I run my software delivery shops, and I think is very common with my colleagues at different companies, is we really want to have everyone set up for success and the ability to make choices that are right for them in terms of flexibility, right? We don't care what people wear. Working from home is a thing that people need to do. We don't have set check-in, check-out times. One of the easiest things that I can do is make sure that there are people sitting in every seat. But that's considerably less important than making sure that they're set up for success and have things they can do and are productive. And I'm much more focused on that second one. And that means giving employees flexibility and really agency and responsibility to make the right choices in their benefit and of the companies, and doing that at the same time. I think a lot of people have a perception of startups as being a bunch of 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds who work 20 hours a day. But when you look at some of the statistics, and I think it's definitely true for me anecdotally here in Toronto, is actually the most successful startups actually have a much wider range, much bigger diversity of age, right? Which means that we're not all just graduated from college and have no requirements. So work-life balance is particularly important. Across our group of 40 or 50 people, maybe a third to half of those folks are parents. Lots of them have little kids. And we're going to use that flexibility to focus on a strong work-life balance. One of my big focuses is on sustainable pace. I tell my folks we are in a race, and we'll talk a little bit about productivity in a minute, but it's a marathon. It's not a 100-meter dash, which means that we have to run at sustainability for a long time. And if everyone here is till 10 or 11 o'clock at night, we're all going to burn ourselves out in a month or two and not be successful there, right? Obviously, in these last two ones, you've got to make your own judgment in terms of what your experience has been. But these are coming from what our folks have seen as they've come and arrived here in Toronto. This next one was an interesting one for me, and I was pleased to see as I got the feedback back from the staff. We do have flexible hours, we do have work-life balance, but we are business outcome focused, which means that when we're working, we need to work, right? And what's interesting is a contrast this developer found in terms of we sit at our desk and we work. It doesn't mean we don't chit-chat at lunch or have social events, we do. But we're a lot more focused on business outcomes, right? As I said, we are in a race, right? We are a startup. We do not have unlimited capacity. We do not have unlimited budgets. We've got to go tackle this market and make it happen, right? So compared to even in Toronto, the large enterprises, we've got to move at pace. So I'd much rather have us focus. And again, I think this would be in a reality in contrast to the perception of we're all playing ping pong and running around the office in scooters and the beer cart going around at 2 o'clock every day. And that's just not realistic. There's some elements of that for sure, but in an organized and in an appropriate way. In the meantime, most of what we're doing is getting stuff done. And that's really what we want to have a very strong focus on. One of the other things that I found, and we really focus on, and people coming in here, anyone coming to Canada, business environment here, particularly in a startup, everyone will be extremely approachable. And there is an expectation that if there is a question you have or some blocker or some confusion that's on the behalf of the employee, there is an expectation that you're the one raising that, right? I'm not a micromanager. We can't be micromanaging. We want to set up for people for success. And as one of those earlier quotes said, we hire a bunch of smart people. They need to go find what they need to help, and everyone's willing to help, right? There is no firm hierarchy. Titles don't matter from this perspective at a company our size and in this culture. No one has an office. I sit right next to one of the devs. The CEO is right to my back, and we're all an open office plan, right? So approachability is key, and the willingness and ability to approach everyone is tremendously tied into success. Another one to keep in mind is, and I do see it as global talent trained candidates come in, I think there might be a hesitance to ask for the going market rate for salary in the location that you're going to. I don't presume to know why. I wonder if it is, so interested in getting a job there that maybe underselling yourself a little bit. So like this person, keep in mind that people in my seat will not perceive negotiation on salary negatively. We're interested in what your salary expectations are. Don't be afraid to push on that. Obviously do it professionally, but do push for it. Costs are different, and it's hard to get your salary expectations ahead of time. And another place where tons of research is super valuable, but there is not a negative perception in Canada and the startup scene to negotiate on salary. And I'm not incented to pay lower rates to folks coming in from abroad. And in fact, I'm incented the opposite way. I can get in trouble, our company can get in trouble from the Canadian government and paying significantly lower salaries to immigrants because that's perceived as taking jobs away, higher paying jobs from Canadians, which is the furthest thing from my mind. I want to find great talent wherever that is. But there is no incentive on my part to pay less than the going rate for Toronto. I found this next quote very interesting, and anyone who's read about Canada will have a sense of and a perception of politeness, but it is tied into some of this directness too. And this person was talking about everyone handled things very politely, but they also expressed themselves pretty clearly, right? If something wasn't working, we will say that, right? And communication, again, from that approachability and an informality, there is a directness. Again, we always want to be professional and polite, but it is not as formal or as toned down as might be in some other cultures. It all comes back to that informality and approachability across it. But we are very polite here in Canada, in Toronto, right? And it is an expectation of anyone coming in, and it's a very common quality of all of Canadians in Toronto. I think this is universal, and the more that folks come in and practice that same way, the more the respect this person found from Canadians. And then my final slide here is one of my favorite ones, and the typical sense of saying sorry. In this case, this is a developer who came from Brazil and talking about the personal space. But I love this comment here that when you run into their way, a Canadian's way, they're the ones who are saying sorry, even though it might have been your fault to do that, right? And for anyone who's interested, you can always tell a Canadian accent from an American accent because I say sorry and Canadians say sorry. And that's the one way you can tell the difference between a Canadian and American. That's the slides I had to cover today. So thanks very much for your time. And I think, Juliana, I think we can turn it over to questions at this time. I'm happy to cover anything that anyone's got.
Yes, definitely. Amazing presentation, Sean. I love that. And just want to share a few things because I'm also an immigrant, right? I came to Vancouver back in 2012, 13. And that was one of the first things that I noticed, like how people are polite here. And people I bump into a person like on the escalator or something, and the person, will say sorry to me. And now I am the person saying so yeah, that's so funny. So I love your presentation, especially in terms of you got, most of the insights from your own employees, right?
Yeah.
So yes, that's amazing. That's amazing. So yes, we do have a lot of questions in our chat already. So let's start. Just scroll down a little bit to see. So we have an interesting question here from Sovaraj, and this is a very common question. I get a lot of that from our candidates because as we have a lot of people from India, from Nigeria, from Brazil, and a lot of people working in big companies, right? Like IBM, Accenture, and sometimes they worry a little bit, if this would be an asset for startups, or what would be the mindset or something to adapt or learn from it. No,
it's a great question, right? And and it is broader than even the global talent stream and being an immigrant to Canada, right? Even within Canadian staff, we think about that, right? Mm-hmm. So, the couple things that I would really emphasize whenever I have someone who I'm interviewing who has an experience primarily like that, I often ask what was their experience in that, and why were they looking to move on from those large companies. And I'm looking for answers that are the startup strengths, right? So by that I mean, if someone who's worked in that background is saying things like, we make decisions too slow, I don't have enough impact on my company by myself, there's too much bureaucracy, too much standardization on things that don't matter, and then the other big one would just be kind of pace and change. I'm looking for faster change, faster action, right? Those are all the kinds of answers that I'm looking for as a reason why you would be moving away from those larger companies. If you are showing signs of you like lots and lots of structure, you like to have things really well laid out and planned in a far distance, then probably the startup life is not the right one for you, right? Our roadmap right now goes out 12 weeks, and beyond that, we don't really have anything to say, right? We're much more quick, and we're much smaller and much more nimble on that. So really be looking at focusing on those things and highlighting those aspects of your work experience, and really be convinced that that's what you want. You're looking for things that are more like that.
Yes, that's so true. I think, like, for me, from my own experience, VanHack is the second startup I work for, and it's a very different pace we work. And the words that you mentioned today is like really the reality, right? Like the flexibility we have, people are very approachable, and the work-life balance. But at the same time, I feel like I work more than I have worked in other companies, but it's fun, and it's like we learn so much, and we connect so much with people. So we gotta have that eager, right, to really be there, learn from it, and connect to people and get things done. Fun, right?
One more practical point on Suraj's question too that I would suggest. One of the things we see with devs who have experience just at one or two of those large companies is that they are they may be deep, but they're narrow in the tech stack that they're familiar with. Maybe they've been doing Java for 8 to 10 years or .NET for 8 to 10 years. So one of the other things to focus on is taking coursework, studying on yourself, doing your own personal projects in other language to demonstrate that ability to learn other technologies.
Yes, amazing. Okay, so we do have other questions here. Let me check it out. So Hello is asking, okay, so he lives in Brazil. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, he would like to know how open startups are to hire people from global talents, and maybe what would be the criterias, because what would be the criteria for a startup to hire someone from abroad? I think
There's no problem for startups to hit that criteria. Some of my, again, colleagues in other companies think they have more criteria to hit than they actually do. There's no problem for a startup to do so. There are a few things that the Canadian government does ask for you to do to support bringing people into global talent stream, but they're not onerous. They're not overwhelming, right? Things like, the inbound candidate needs to do some presentations and share their knowledge internally. You might say, we're bringing talent in from technology perspective from abroad, but that's going to create jobs in customer support, right? These are all kind of natural things. So I agree, some startups think it's harder than it actually is, but it's not. There isn't actually a barrier for startups. If they know how to do it, they'll find that it's easy.
Yes, I agree. I think this market is growing a lot, so every time they're in need of more professionals and qualified professionals. And I think a plus is also, like, especially Toronto and Vancouver, they're a very multicultural city already, and because of this, I think they're used to deal with people from everywhere, and so it's kind of easy. The only thing is, it's still like, some companies, they don't know exactly how this process work. So I think more in terms of like not knowing than just like the challenge of meeting the criteria, as you said, right? It's just more like they don't know much information yet. So that's why we're here.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay. So let's see other questions here. Okay, so we have lots of experienced people. Okay, is there a average age of people working in a startup, or are they looking for average age, or this doesn't really matter?
I've never asked nor cared what the age of folks was.
Yeah. This is a thing in some countries, like in Brazil, for example. You have to mention your age, right, or your nationality or things like that in your resume. But this is not a thing in Canada, right? So
no, not at all.
Yeah, which is great. So I do have a question here. I took some notes. So what would be some of the challenges of working in this type of environment?
The challenges?
The challenges.
Yeah. It's a good question, right? And for me, it's really finding the right the right personality and the right fit from a culture perspective makes a lot of sense. A lot of the things that I talked about before, may be challenges to certain folks in terms of what they like to work in. Mm-hmm. To give one example, I was critical of large companies for being too structured and too rigid. Mm-hmm. But honestly, startups I've worked with, we move very fast, and we're not as well structured. We can be a little chaotic in terms of what we're doing. We mm-hmm. move fast, and some people find that kind of a bit of a challenge, right? You can look at that approachability as being, that's a great asset, mm-hmm. That you can go ask anyone when you need help. Other people would see that as a challenge of, it's not well written down. There isn't a process for me to go look at and see how to do this. These things. Those will kind of be the top things that come to my mind in terms of the challenges in the kind of the startup space.
Yes, I got it. And what would be a overall hiring process in a startup from your experience?
Yeah. I did say, one of the people that I sent the survey out with internally did say we were faster than some of the other companies in Canada, right? So I didn't want to say that because it sounded like I was promoting our own company too much, right? As opposed to generic learning. But, most of the good startup companies know they need to move fast with the recruiting process because talent just doesn't stay available very long, right? From a developer perspective, I'm a big proponent of, and I think more and more companies are doing it, of some sort of technical challenge where there's a piece of code that we ask someone to write. Mm-hmm. We do an assessment of that. Then we do, as much as possible, we try to do in one day, 3 hours of interviews, and then make a decision, as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. So some initial screen, a code challenge, and then 3 hours of interviews, and you meet 2 people each interview for 6 total. Mm-hmm. Now, for remote candidates, we're happy to spread those out. It's a lot to be on a a Google Hangout for 3 hours straight. So there's some flexibility there. We're also aware that once we hire someone, they can't be here tomorrow, right? That's not a big deal for us. We know that there's immigration, right? But from my perspective, I want to hire people now, and I want to hire people in 6 months, and I want to hire people in 12 months. So it's much more of a continuous pipeline is what we're aiming for.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
We do have a specific cultural interview, a values interview, where we give the same interview for every single role, where we talk a lot about some of the things that I alluded there in terms of approachability, outcome focus, those kinds of activity, which are generic across any role.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And sometimes because most of have their tech people, right? And sometimes we focus a lot on the technical skills, but how about the soft skills? Do you guys have like a specific way to evaluate that and see if the person is the right fit? Like how that would work?
Yeah, so our typical structure would be to, and again, this would be independent, as you say, of technology or non-technology, to look at each of the person's roles that they've been at, talk about their accomplishments and their teams, talk about their challenges and the mistakes they've made, right? And coming back to that concept of polite and direct, we're looking for straightforward, direct answers to those questions. We're looking for people who have a strong bias towards collaboration and that sense of I'm working with a team. We're looking at folks who have a sense that the things they're most proud of are outcome driven, their accomplishments, as opposed to I did a bunch of work or I did my thing really well, but the rest of it was a mess. Those kinds of answers we're trying to find people more biased towards that outcome and that collaboration focused. I said a couple times, right? We do need people to kind of find their own way. We do provide leadership, we do provide direction, but we're trying to hire smart people who don't need a script to do their job, that they're able to find their own way to the outcomes with support, of course, but they're driving a lot of that themselves. And those are the things we're looking for. And again, they said a couple times, that's technology or not technology.
Yes, I totally agree. And then really like showing that passion, right? That you know what that you know what you do and you do with passion because you like, right? Because you love it.
Right. I mean, you could just tell that passion when you're talking to someone about what they're proud of. Does that really come through? Does they feel passionate? Are they really excited about their job? I think that's a hard thing to fake, and that's one of the things we're looking for too.
That's true. That's true. So Willen is asking that in Brazil, there is a tendency of people being very generalist, right? They do a little bit of everything in the company. And, sometimes we see that Canada, they like more kind of like specialist type of professional. Is that a thing? Or like, what is what are your point of view on that?
Well, it's a great question, and I would say that kind of from a startup perspective, we do lean more towards the generalist side of things, right? We are looking for polyskilled folks that can support each other on an individual team. I'm a big believer that the most effective developers are polyglot developers that know multiple different languages, which connects back to that previous thing I said, demonstrate that you're not just in a narrow, maybe deep, but not just a narrow field. We don't have specialists on individual roles, right? So, our tech leads do some project management, as does the product manager. We will selectively, hire for a particular specialization when that's really necessary, right? In data science, right? You've got to have the maths background and the data science associated. Not everyone can play in that space, but as much as possible, we don't have the scale where you can come in and just do one thing and one thing only across 40 hours in a week.
Awesome. Okay, so I think we can take maybe one more question here because it's already 9. Let me see here. Andre is looking at, let me see. I think he wants to know about whiteboard type of interview.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Hello, everyone.
Hi there.
Welcome, guys. Yeah, we have a lot of information today, Fernando. So, guys, welcome. Really nice to have you here. Where are you guys from? Hello. Oh, you're from Colombia. Fernando, we're having a recruiting mission in Colombia in March next year. Have you applied yet? It'll be a really big one. It's the first time we're actually doing a recruiting mission outside of Brazil, which is a really good thing. The audio is repeating itself. Do you hear that too, Carol?
No, for me it's all fine.
No echo? Okay.
No.
So it should be okay. And Regina's from Nigeria. It's really nice. We have a really big community in Nigeria. I think, I don't know if you know that, Carol, but we had a meetup there last month, if I'm not wrong. We also had 2 meetups in India. So our community is growing.
That's amazing. I know that you had like someone from Nigeria that was hired at Thinkific, right?
I'm not sure. Recently?
Yeah. Her name
Was
is
it
Susan.
Cam? Oh, Susan Echo.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She's really
She came
amazing.
here through Leap, right?
Yeah.
Oh, she's really nice. Yeah. So Leap is another of our events where we basically bring professionals from around the world to Canada so they can be interviewed by companies in person. And
Oh, right.
For years. Well, I think he's just want to know about whiteboard or technical in general.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think like every company would have like a little bit different way to evaluate, right, the technical skills. Not all the companies will have the whiteboard, right? But
no.
Yeah,
it's common though.
Yeah. So I think maybe a good last question here. What would be your final piece of advice for someone that's like really looking into prepare for this international market and wants to work in a startup? And what do you think would be a very like essential thing?
Yeah, it's hard to narrow down to just one thing. I would say as you're presenting yourself forward, right? There's present yourself forward, step forward, right? There is an appetite and a growing appetite in Toronto for talent from around the world to help us solve problems, right? And whether it's the whiteboard exercise or the values or the code, that's what we're looking for. We've got hard problems in front of us. We're trying to go tackle hard challenges, and we want people to join us on that mission. And so really focused on problem solving, outcome-driven successes in your career, and put your best foot forward for it.
Amazing, amazing. High performance people, right?
Yep.
That's great.
I think Thinkific was hired in this event. Really cool. I love her. She's from Nigeria. Nigerians are really great. All right, cool. So let's get started, everyone. So I'm Stephanie. Really nice to meet you if you haven't met me yet. I work at VanHack. I'm in charge of the verification processes, and I'm also in charge of the VanHackathon this year, right? So today we're doing the 5th edition of VanHackathon. This is slightly different from our previous editions, especially the one that Carol participated in. So this year, this is basically how it works. So the first step is to apply.
That's great. Sean, thank you so much for
My pleasure.
Being here with us today, for sharing all your expertise. I have learned a lot, and I'm sure you have provided a lot of great value for our community. So thank you so much, guys, for joining us. If we haven't answered your question today, please shoot me a message, an email. We'll do our best to answer them. And I think that's it. So
thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Sean. You guys have a good day. We'll share this video later. So the recording, so we'll share the recording later with you guys. Okay?
Sounds great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
At the VanHackathon page. All the information is there. So we've covered what you need to do, what is the schedule of the event, what are the prizes, and so on. You need to apply, and to be eligible, you need to be verified. So you need to complete your English verification. That's mandatory for all candidates. And you also should complete your code verification if you work with one of the languages that we cover, right? So if you're a software developer or a DevOps engineer, basically. So after you do hit apply, we do start screening candidates, the ones that are eligible, and basically we will be assigning the best candidates to companies with the positions that we have available, right? So far we've had 5 companies confirmed. We have around 7 others that are interested, and we are just like finishing the last details with them, so they will be in the hackathon. Many different roles confirmed, so we have full stack, we have React Native developers, we have DevOps, backend, front end, etc. So pretty much the main ones will be there. And we will be selecting candidates according, of course, to the jobs that will be available. Okay, so once you are selected, you will receive lots of information from us as to what expecting in that week and how it's going to work. But basically, the hackathon will begin on November 15th. On this day, you will have a 30-minute webinar with the company to which you were assigned for, right? So let's say you were assigned to company X. You will be speaking to someone from company X, most likely a hiring engineer there. And this person will be talking about the company, will be talking about the challenge or challenges that they have proposed, and will be answering any questions you might have. That's your first point of interaction with the company. All right. Starting from there, you will have 5 days to complete your challenge. No, don't worry, you won't have to work full time for 5 days. Okay. Think of it as a weekend hackathon where you'll have a few extra days to finish the last details, right? That's basically how it's going to be. So challenges should take candidates no longer than 20 or 24 working hours to be completed. These can be, of course, split among the 5 days, or you can concentrate everything on a few days on a weekend, for example. It's not a problem. And so you would be starting this challenge. So we would start it on a Friday. You would deliver it on a Wednesday. And of course, during that week, the company will be on our Slack channel. They will be there to answer your questions, to talk to you once in a while. Okay, so that's another point of interaction between you and the company. And lastly, since you will submit your challenge on a Wednesday, we will then send your code to the companies. And then on the Friday, you will have 15 or 20 minutes of exclusive one-on-one time between you and someone from the company. So again, most likely a technical hiring manager, right? So during this 15, 20 minutes, you'll have the chance to pitch your project. So show them what you did, how you did it, why you did it that way, why you used those technologies and not others, answer questions they might have, etc. It's basically your opportunity to introduce yourself and to show them what you were able to do in those 5 days. From there on, the companies will then continue their hiring processes. Most of them will cut some part of their hiring process because of the hackathon, right? So most of them have either like a technical challenge or a take-home challenge. They would be skipping that, so the hiring process would be faster because you participated in the VanHackathon, right? And then, of course, the biggest prize of this hackathon is the chance to get hired in one of these companies. We are also giving 3 months of free VanHack Premium to everyone who is selected, okay? Everyone, no exceptions. And we'll also be selecting 15 of the selected candidates to be pre-selected, to be invited to come to one of our LEAP events here in Canada next year. Okay, so of course, if you are selected, you will receive 500 Canadian dollars to help with costs, right? So that's just something else that we will be offering, along, of course, with the opportunity to do networking and meet new people and work on a very exciting challenge. Okay, so that's the VanHackathon in a nutshell. If you do have questions, I will be going over them later, okay, with Carol. But right now, I would like to introduce Carol. So Carol, guys, we're really proud of her. She's a VanHacker we're really proud of. She was one of our first women developers who got hired through VanHack, and she was hired through VanHackathon really shortly after she found out about VanHack and she joined our community, okay? And she has been working in this Vancouver-based company for a few years now. And I'm just really glad to have you here today, Carol. Thank you so much for accepting my invite. So would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for inviting me. This is an amazing opportunity. I'm really happy to talk about like my journey and help with questions and tips to everyone so they can all succeed on the hackathon. So I'm Carolina Darski. I am from south of Brazil. I am a software developer already for almost 10 years. I have been working on Thinkific for 2.5 years, which is amazing. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
All right. So Carol, before you got hired, can you tell us a little bit about what was your professional background then? Because we get a lot of questions from candidates asking, I don't know, is my experience good enough? Can I get hired this way? So can you tell us a little bit of how many years of experience did you have, where you were working on, what kind of languages you were working on as well?
Yeah, so before I find this opportunity on VanHack to work at Thinkific, I was working at SAP in Brazil. I worked with ABAP for 2 years almost, and then 1.5 years with Java and like their own cloud services and stuff. So before that as well, I worked with Delphi. That is a pretty old language that I'm not proud of, but that time I had like 6 years and 8 months of experience before like applying to jobs abroad.
Okay, that's really great. And I was just looking, like I know a little bit about Thinkific. I know that their main stack right now is based on Ruby on Rails and JavaScript, right? Have you worked with Ruby before getting hired at Thinkific?
No, and that's the fun part. Like when I was doing my my interviews with them, I told them like, oh, I know like Ruby on Rails just like to play around, but I never like did nothing like anything professionally, and I don't know like the deep of the language and everything. And they were like pretty open about it, that like it was okay because I was like a senior developer, and they said that like I could learn any language, so they were pretty okay with that. So I learned that there. Of course, I took courses like outside my work hours as well to support me. And also, I didn't know anything about front end, and I was hired as a full stack. But I was like really, really excited to learn. And now I like last year, I probably took one project that was like mainly front end, and I could lead that project and was pretty successful. So I'm like really proud because I didn't know like anything 2 years and a half ago. But yeah, like it's really amazing.
Man, that is fantastic. So I think it's just like your eagerness to want to learn, and as well, of course, you had a really strong background. That was the thing that got you hired, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool, actually. So how has your experience being a Thinkific so far? Can you tell us a little bit? I mean, you were in Brazil, you were working only for like Brazilian-based companies. So what are the main differences? What do you like the most, etc.?
Okay, so when I started at Thinkific, I was working remotely because I was waiting for my LMA, for my work permit to work it almost 3 months remotely until I get like all the paperwork done, and I could move to Canada. Uh, the first 3 months were kind of challenging because of like the time zone, as I didn't know like the product well, because I was used to work with I moved to work like in a company that is like education based, right? So I was okay freaking out because I was trying to understand the business and everything. But everyone was really, really supportive. They still like they are really, really helpful. So it was hard in the beginning, but once I got like comfortable with the situation and I saw that like everyone was like really helpful and really nice, I felt like better, and I started like getting together, like engaging more in the company and so on. So for me, the beginning was hard. I'm not gonna lie, because you need to like talk in a different language that we are not used to talk in our daily basis. There is like the cultural differences sometimes, but was really nice to be able to work in a company that has like such incredible culture and values. And we have like people from all over the world. So we have people from Egypt working there. We have a lot of Brazilians. We have people from Russia, from Nigeria, from like everywhere. And because of that, we have like a multicultural environment where people really are eager to like share their culture and understand each other, even that sometimes one thing is not like acceptable in another culture. We always talk about those differences and try to learn with each other. So it's really, really amazing.
Wow, that's really cool. So how do you think your skills have evolved working at Thinkific? Because I know that many candidates, some of them want to work abroad because their main drive is I want to relocate, but many of them, they want to just like expand on their skills. They want new challenges, harder challenges. So how would you say you have grown professionally in this past 2 years and a half?
Well, that's a really hard question, because I cannot like I could if I go back like 2 years and a half, I wouldn't imagine that I would grow as I grew at Thinkific. So, like my skills, not only like the technical side, but more like the soft skills as well, I evolved a lot. The technical skills, of course, being a part of a startup and being able like to talk and suggest new technologies and openly participate in discussions helped me a lot to learn how to research better, how to bring arguments, and how understand each other's point of view. And these open a lot of doors for me. So after I started learning more about Ruby on Rails and about JavaScript and then courses and pairing with colleagues and so on, last 3 months ago, I was promoted to be a lead engineer, which is pretty amazing. I wasn't expecting that, but this is all because really they really had like this environment to let me grow and support others, and also let others support me, which is awesome.
Wow, that's a great company.
Yeah, it is.
It is. So, Carol, some people are asking here in the chat. So, you were sponsored, right? So, you integrated through GTS, correct?
Yeah.
And one important fact that Carol was sharing with me was that the company at the time was only sponsoring like very, very senior software developers, but they did open an exception for you, right? Because they liked you so much. So it's nice to see this flexibility. And someone else asked if you moved with your family. So I'm not sure if you came to Vancouver with anyone else at the time.
Yes, my husband came with me. So he got the open work permit because of the LMA that I got, and through the GTS, he got the open work permit, and he's like working here as well.
Yeah, and he's also a software developer, right?
Yes.
That's great. All right, so moving on to like VanHack. So I know that you joined VanHack a little bit before you did the VanHackathon. How do you think VanHack helped you to get this hired in Thinkific?
So when I joined VanHack was like literally one day after I finished the VanHackathon challenge, because I was so excited about the company, about Thinkific, that I wanted to apply. And then I decided like, okay, let's apply and see what happens. And I the time, and I was talking like with some of the staff, like, I'm really nervous. Can you help me? And Julia, in the time that works at VanHack, she reviewed my resume, which was amazing because I saw that I was like literally not following the standards that company in Canada would like look for information. For example, I had my education in the beginning of the resume. That doesn't make sense because no one knows where I studied, right? So she really explained to me like how to build my resume to be like stronger and be more powerful, which helped me a lot for sure. So after I did that, she also did English test with me in the time to make sure that I was feeling comfortable and everything for the interview, which was really amazing and was really helpful. And after that, I sent my resume, and they called. I think they sent me an email like in 2 days, like, oh, we want to have an interview with you. And VanHack in the time, like, everyone was so helpful because everyone's like, calm down, everything's gonna be fine. And they were like really cheering for the situation. So it was really amazing. And after that, all the communications that I have during the interview steps, a VanHack staff helped me to get information from inside to see if the feedback was fine, if everything was going smoothly, if there was anything that I could get better or anything that I should know. So it was really a smooth interview process, I would say. And I don't think that I would get through without VanHack help, because I was like literally freaking out in the first interview. So it was really helpful to have the support.
Yeah, that's really great to hear, actually. So just some contextualization. Carol was hired back in 2017. And we keep like, this is our mindset, right? So once we get a candidate to interview stage, we want to do everything possible to get this person to offer stage, right? So this continues, but now, of course, our team has grown. We are around 45 people in the team. So we have really nice new additions. So for example, now we have a relocation manager. So if you're moving to Vancouver, let's say, this person will help you find a house, find a school for your kids, decide where to live, give you the first steps on how to get your ID and everything else. We also have an immigration consultant working with us, and a really big support team, right? So our team, a big part of our team is centered around helping candidates. So we want to help candidates first to get better at interviews, get better at technical interviews, improve their coding skills, and so on. And we also want to help candidates get a job abroad, of course, right? That's our main goal. Moving on now to the VanHackathon, Carol. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience? I know that it was a bit different back in 2017, but how did it work? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, back in that time, what happened is that we had like presentation about the challenges that we would choose to work on. And we were working in groups. So in the time it was me, my husband, and two friends of ours, all developers. So we were looking through the challenges, and one thing that really called us the attention was the Thinkific challenge because it was education related. So they wanted in the time us to build something that you could import a PDF, and then it would transform in a presentation that you could like record audio for each slide, and you could put like text and stuff, like a course builder prototype, let's say. And we were like, oh, this is really fun. Like it looks fun. I would like to know how this works. And then I remember that in the time we signed up for their platform to create a course to see how it looks like, so we could have an idea of what they were trying to like achieve, what we would try to achieve, which was pretty helpful. And then I fell in love with their platform because it was like really nice. And we had like, it was in a weekend, so we started on a Friday night, and we had to deliver 7 p.m. And then we were just like heads down, working hard. We broke down things on tasks, and everyone like helped each other. We did all the stretch goals, if I'm not mistaken, which was amazing. But we slept only 3 hours during the whole weekend, which was kind of crazy, but totally worth it.
It is kind of crazy. That's why we decided to do it a little bit with more breathing time now, because we know it's usually big challenges and we want to do our best, right, in hackathons.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And the fun part was to see that everyone like that were participating in the VanHackathon, they were like helping each other with tips and stuff in the channel, which was pretty amazing because I wasn't expecting to see that. People were like really awesome.
Oh, that's nice. So I meant to ask you, what would you say were the main like challenges that you faced while doing the hackathon?
I think time was one in the back there, and also trying to communicate with the company, because we were like pretty unfortunate in that weekend, because we had like several questions for them, like how they wanted some stuff to work, because it wasn't clear, it was kind of generic, and we want to make sure that we are doing the right thing. But they were in a company retreat, which is pretty amazing. But like they were like pretty helpful. They answered us in the other day, it was fine. But for us, we felt like, oh, we don't know what's going on, because we received just the auto response email like, oh, we are at Game Bear Island having our like team offsite, and with a lot of gifts, which was pretty amazing. And we were like, okay, maybe we won't hear from anyone. So it was kind of scary for on Friday night. But then in the other day, like they asked for the CTO to email us back and answer all the questions, which was awesome. So we could like finish the challenge in the best way possible.
Yeah, I saw some of the videos. So guys, if you don't know, we have a few videos with Carol already. So 2 with her and 1 with just people from her company. And I see testimonials from her CEO, testimonials from the HR person, and etc. And I heard about this, right? That they were on a company retreat. And I thought that it was really nice that even though they were in a company retreat, they were still replying to emails, even if it was on the weekends. Like they really wanted to get you guys to their team, right? They really wanted for you to be successful, and that's really great to hear, right?
Yeah, so, and I heard that all of the other companies, they were also helping the candidates and answering questions, which was really amazing.
Yeah, it is. And now we want same thing to happen. So the companies will be logging in on our Slack channel, exclusive Slack channel just for VanHackathon candidates. They will be checking in with you. They will be answering your questions and etc. Like you won't be left alone to do the challenge. Okay, guys, if you were selected, don't worry about that. Carol, let me ask you, did you do anything else to prepare for the hackathon?
I did a little bit of research of some companies that like VanHack let us know that were going to participate in that edition, just to know like what they do and so on, so could help us to choose the challenge like quickly, as we didn't have a lot of time. And also I started like learning more about JavaScript because I know that like any challenge, if you had like front end, probably would use like JavaScript with some framework or library. So I started like learning a little bit more of it to be prepared.
Yeah, it's good to brush up your skills. And then, like, what would you say? What kind of tips would you give to someone who's going to participate in this VanHackathon?
First of all, choose a challenge that you really, really like. So something that you are passionate about, because this makes easier to deliver the best solution possible. Also, just give your best and try to check all the boxes in the challenges. This is pretty important. Talk about the assumptions that you have when you wrote the think that you could improve as well. When you're explaining to the companies what you did, you can say, oh, we didn't have time, but we could have done this, this, and this. This shows that you care about what you're doing and also that you care about the company. And just have fun. I think that's it.
That's nice. And after the hackathon, how long did it take you to get hired?
It was pretty fast. It was like 3 weeks after the VanHackathon.
Wow, that is fast. So they moved on with interviews right after that, right?
Yes.
How many interviews did you have, Carol?
I had 4 interviews in that time. It was the first one was a fun interview, like 30 minutes to get to know me better. The second one was a technical challenge where I had like to develop a solution for a challenge that they sent to me. And the third one was a really long interview with HR to go like really deep in my resume to understand how like all my experiences and how like how I react to situations and things like that. And the last one was like to give me the offer and to talk to the CEO, which was pretty awesome. I wasn't expecting that. I was like, oh, it's Greg. Oh my God, what I do now? So it was really, really amazing. And this was in 2017, but now the process is still the same. So we have three main interviews. That is like the phone interview, the technical challenge, the this like deeper resume and experiences interview, and then we have like reference check that we're gonna check if the references match, and then the offer, which is pretty amazing because it didn't change a lot.
Yeah, that's really cool, actually. And I think Thinkific has hired 4 or 5 people from VanHack in the past few years, right?
Yes. And which is pretty exciting, and we are like receiving a lot of VanHackers to do interviews, and we are hiring for 60 positions, so we are growing a lot. So please take a look on VanHack positions and apply to Thinkific through them. Who like be really happy because we need engineers.
Yeah, so Thinkific is already a client of ours, and I think we're 99% sure that they will be at the hackathon, right, Carol?
Yeah.
She talked to the director of engineering yesterday. We're also in conversations with them, so can't guarantee yet, but we're almost sure that they'll be there too. So if you got interested in what Carol had to share today about her experience, about the company, do apply for the VanHackathon if you haven't yet. Okay? All right, cool. So guys, just for those who joined us a little bit later, I'm just going to go over the VanHackathon again, just to also explain the main differences between this edition and Carol's edition, okay? So the main differences, for example, Carol, she did a group challenge. As of now, for all the companies that joined us, none of them will do group challenges, okay? They will all be individual. But of course, there might be other companies joining this week and in the next week that may offer some group challenges, okay? So if they do a group challenge, and if you are selected to participate on a challenge for that company, basically because your skills match to what they're looking for, we will help you create groups. All right, that's the first thing. The second thing, Carol's hackathon was during the weekend. In this edition, we decided to do something a bit longer, from basically Friday night to Wednesday night. Not because you have to code for 5 days and the challenges won't be necessarily longer. It's just to give you some more breathing space so you can complete your challenges and just finalize any details that you need in a good way. Okay, it's also so you can kind of prepare your pitch, because another difference from this year's hackathon and 2017's hackathon is that this time you will have 15-20 minutes to do one-on-one calls with someone from the company that you did a challenge for, and you will be able to pitch your project. So we'll be there explaining what you did, explaining why you did it that way, and answering questions from the company. All right, so these are some of the main differences. Another difference is that in all our previous editions, basically the only prize we offered, which is a big prize already, was that you could get hired at the end, right? Of course, we keep offering that. We're going to have many open positions in this hackathon. But something else is we're offering 3 free months of VanHack Premium to all selected candidates. This is all selected candidates, okay? And so you can, like, while you are doing interviews, you can do interview practice classes with VanHack. You can have a resume review with one of our consultants. You can do a LinkedIn review, etc. So you'll have access to all our premium service. Apart from this, we'll also be selecting 15 people from the selected pool to come to one of our leaps in 2020. Okay, so the point here is, like, your chances don't end at the hackathon. We know that not everyone gets hired because there aren't enough open roles for everyone. But even if you didn't get hired at the VanHackathon, we want to give you another opportunity to come to Canada. We'll give you 500 Canadian dollars for that, and you will be interviewed by many companies in the city you come to. Okay, so in our previous leaps, we've had like 10, 20, even 30 companies coming to interview candidates. They all get really excited, and you'll do face-to-face interviews with these companies, right? Apart from that, you'll have all the benefits of a regular hackathon. So networking time, you'll be able to connect with companies. Maybe this, like, we'll develop a relationship with them. We'll develop a relationship with other VanHackers, with the VanHack team, and also to improve your skills. So Carol had to brush up to, like, her skills on JavaScript to work on that challenge. And I think it kind of helped in the future because she was hired as a full stack developer, right? So these are the main benefits of the VanHackathon. So the deadline to apply ends this Sunday, okay? We extended it for 2 days. This Sunday, October 27th, this is the deadline to apply. It's also the deadline to complete your code and English verification, okay? Code verification, of course, just if you are a software developer or a DevOps engineer. After you apply, we'll start screening your profile. You will only be selected if there is a position that matches your profile, that matches your skills. Okay, this needs to be clear, guys, because we'll be doing, like, okay, so this is John Doe. John Doe is a Python full stack developer. We have a Python full stack position at this company, so we'll be assigning you to that company and that challenge. Why we're doing that? It's because we want to maximize your chances of getting hired. We know that if you're a Python developer and you're completing, let's say, a Ruby on Rails challenge, You may get hired, like Carol did, although she didn't complete it in Ruby, right, Carol, your challenge. You may have that chance, but your chances are kind of slimmer, okay? That's why we want to maximize your potential there. So that's another difference from this year and 2017. In 2017, the candidates were able to choose what challenge they wanted to work on. Now we will assign you to a specific challenge and you will only work on that one, okay? You can't do more than one because honestly, there isn't enough time for that, and you might end up blowing up 2 chances, okay? So that's it. So the October 27th is the deadline to apply. November 15th, we will start the hackathon. Is the official launch with webinars from companies with their candidates. They'll be pitching them, they'll be pitching their projects, etc. You will be delivering the challenges on November 20th. And on November 22nd, you'll have the opportunity to pitch your project to that company, okay? After that, hiring processes will begin. And of course, maybe in a few weeks, like Carol did, you will receive an offer. Why not? That's a big opportunity, right, Carol?
Yeah, it is. And I would say, like, really do all the things that you need to be selected for VanHackathon because it's really worth it. You get to know like a lot of companies that you wouldn't know just like applying through the positions on the website. So it's a great opportunity. And also, as Stephanie mentioned, they're going to be pairing based on your skill, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. And of course, maybe in 2.5 years, it could be you doing this webinar with me instead of Carol. Right, Carol? Could be someone who's in this chat.
Yeah, hopefully.
That would be pretty cool. All right, so let's open for questions now. So I'll start scrolling through the chat, okay, from the oldest to most recent message. Abdul asked if he submits his code verification in 2 hours from now, he will get the result on time from the VanHackathon. Yes, it's usually, it syncs within a few minutes, maybe a few hours, okay? Let's see, what else? Paul asked if the VanHackathon is in groups or solo. That depends on the challenge, okay? So the companies will provide the challenges, guys. We cannot answer specific questions about the challenges because honestly, we weren't the ones who created them. So, but as of now, all of the challenges that we have are to be done alone, okay? The code verification does have a deadline, October 27th. If there are any specific technologies for the hackathon, everyone can apply because, I mean, we're still onboarding companies. Companies are signing up every day. Yesterday, I had calls with three different companies, for example. But as of now, we have jobs, confirmed jobs for React Native developers. Basically, this position is for full stack JavaScript and who also knows some React Native. Okay. We also have jobs for Python full stack developers, QA engineers, any full stack developer that works with either PHP, C#, Java, PHP, C#, Java, or JavaScript on the back end and JavaScript on the front end. We have a position for a senior C++ programmer, basically a gaming programmer that works with C++ and Unreal Engine. That's not a requirement, but that's a good to have, kind of. We also have positions for DevOps engineers, okay? And of course, many other companies are to be confirmed. So I talked to companies who wanted to hire Scrum Masters, product managers, front-end developers, back-end developers, UI, UX engineers, React developers, Android developers. The sky is the limit, right? I talked to many of them and they are to be confirmed. But of course, I will always update you guys on a weekly basis as to what companies are confirmed and what are the roles. And if you are selected, you can be sure that we have a job for you, okay? We won't select you if we don't have that job, all right? Ritesh asked, what is the chance of getting hired? There are really good chances because, as I said, you not only have the chance to get hired at the hackathon, but also after it, right? If you are one of those 15 fortunate candidates who will come to LEAP in 2020. So that's a really good chance, okay? Not only that, I think of it like you will be creating a challenge that you can put on your portfolio, you can add to your GitHub. It's something that will give you more visibility. And by going through this screening process, being selected, we will have identified you as a really good candidate. So of course, this is one thing that VanHack always does, okay? So let's say you were selected for a mission or you were selected for a leap and you don't get hired, we will do everything we can to get you hired after that. Because, I mean, we have identified you as a candidate with great potential. And the same thing will happen at the VanHackathon, okay? If you want to, you can go to the VanHackathon page on the VanHack platform. We do have the videos of 3 success cases there. Carol is one of them. We also have Ana Carolina, who's working in Winnipeg, if I'm not wrong, as a UX and UI developer. She was also hired in the VanHackathon. And André, who's working as a front-end developer here in Vancouver too. Okay, so those 3 people who were hired at the VanHackathon. We have more, of course. But I really don't know the numbers by head, but you can take a look there and I can assure you the opportunities are really good, right? Moving forward, the timelines to share the VanHack code verification, guys, is October 27th. Need to ask with how many companies we get interviewed. So you will be assigned to one company and you will be interviewed if they select you by that company, okay? Ricardo is asking about your relocation package, Carol. Did they offer you housing or some kind of help to relocate?
No, about housing, but they were like pretty helpful. I had like some colleagues that checked apartments for me while I was in Brazil, which was awesome, and they sent me pictures and stuff. When I was working for Brazil, I was working as a contractor because I wasn't in Canada yet. So in the time, what I decided to do was not to receive payments until I get in Canada. And gave me a check with like in Canadian currency, Canadian dollars, which helped me like to find a house and everything like pretty quickly. So I was in Airbnb for 2 weeks and I got an apartment like pretty quickly.
Yeah, and many companies do that nowadays, actually, since the right. So the work permit and the LMIA usually takes like 1-2 months, sometimes even 3. But they want you to start working right away, so you start working remotely for them. They will be paying you the same thing they would be paying you if you were in Canada. So it's a good salary, right? Considering that you're not living in Canada yet. So you get that big check once you get there and you're able to like do everything and rent an apartment, rent a car if you need, and so on. Some companies do provide more relocation packages. So some companies do pay for your flights. Some of them will provide housing for a week, for example, and so on. That is common, but not all companies do that, okay? What you can be sure of is that regarding the immigration process, VanHack will take care of everything. So VanHack will do both the company part, so the LMIA, and the candidate part. So we will do your work permit for you and for your spouse, for your children. We will take care of that for you, okay? With no cost added, of course. We don't charge anything for that. Carol, another question for you. Someone's asking if the hackathon was hard. What would you say?
That's a hard question because I cannot say that it was hard because we were having like so much fun that we were just worried about the time. So we were just worried that we wouldn't get things done in time, but we were like pretty organized. We broke down in tasks everything that we thought about doing. So in the Friday night, what we did a quickly design session between the 4 developers. So we decided how we would tackle the problem and stuff like that. And then we broke down in tasks and we started working on that. This also helps for people that are planning to work on groups in different time zones. Would be nice if you can like just set up a time that you all can meet together and do this like design overview about how you want to approach a solution and break down in tasks so you can all work in your own time. I think you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Thank you, Carol. That's a really great description. And if I'm not wrong, oh yes. So someone asked us if, as a DevOps engineer, they should do code verification. Yes, it does help you out a lot. Okay, that's a must. Someone asked, what is the selection procedure for the VanHackathon? So basically, if you apply, you're able to go to your jobs pipeline and see all the different steps for our selection process. The first step is, of course, we verify if your English and code has been verified. Okay, that's the first step. So for code, you do need to get over 70% as a score. If you meet those requirements and if your profile is complete, we move you forward in the process. And then one of our recruiters screens your profile, see if you're a match for any of the positions that we have available. If you are, they will schedule a screening call with you. That's basically a 15-minute call. They'll be like just going deeper into your experience to try to see if you're really a match for that position. Okay, if you are, we move you forward in the process to pre-selected. And then at this point, the recruiting team, I see that they have an arrangement, so they have to present this for the recruiting manager to get their final approval. And once you have been approved by the manager that yes, you're a great candidate, we move you to selected. Right? So the point is, if you have English, code, and profile, you are already moving forward in the process. We'll screen you, see if you're a match, and if you are, the chances of you getting selected are pretty high. Okay? That's basically how the selection process works. Then Obina asked if he has a 60% PHP code challenge, if he stands a chance. Obina, I'd say you have the chance to retake this challenge and get a higher score. 70% is really like our cutoff score. It's not that high actually, considering our population. So I would say try to retake it, okay? And then you'll meet the eligibility requirements and your profile will be screened by us. Ricardo is also asking, Carol, if you had a technical interview additionally to the VanHackathon.
Yeah, in that case, as I applied one day after I finished the challenge, I didn't wait for the response from them to check the challenge. I had this technical assessment as well.
And how was it like?
It was like another challenge. So I had to build an API in the time, matching some of the criteria that they sent to me. It was pretty similar to the challenge, like the structure of the challenge. So it was like pretty straightforward, and they put like all the stretch goals and stuff. So yeah, it was pretty easy.
Yeah, you were prepared already, right?
Yeah.
All right. And Lokesh is asking, what's the difference between Leap and the VanHackathon? Both are kind of like recruiting fairs. The difference is that for Leap, we bring you to Canada. Okay, so we bring you to one of the main Canadian cities. And you have interviews with many different companies, right? So for Leap, we bring usually like 20 companies. It's a big number of companies. They want to meet you. They come to an event. They meet you face to face, right? And then they start inviting you for interviews. Most candidates actually start having interviews even before coming to Leap, even before coming to Canada, okay, if they are selected. Because once you are selected, we'll start sharing your profile with those companies who are attending. Okay, and then you do face-to-face interviews. You go to the company's office. It's a kind of a different experience. It's something that really helps because companies usually want to meet the person they are going to hire face-to-face, and have that kind of interaction. So that's basically how the Leap event works. Carol's company, Thinkific, also participates in Leap. They have hired candidates from Leap, right, Carol? I know they have gone like a big group to your office. In one of the past Leaps.
Yeah, we had an open housing event that like some candidates went there and spent the evening like drinking with us and getting to know us better.
That's really cool. And the VanHackathon, of course, is 100% online. So you will still get that experience of meeting the companies, of talking to them, but you won't be coming to Canada. right? And of course, you will be completing a challenge during these 5 days. For LEAP, you also do have to complete challenges from companies, but you do complete them while you are here in Canada, in their office. You do pair programming interviews. It's a bit different in that sense, okay? Miguel asked what skills companies are looking for the most. Miguel, I think I went over this already, but we have DevOps, React Native, full stack, QA. Oh my God, there's just so many. I'm sorry. Senior backend programmer that works with C++. So basically, in terms of skills, we have like PHP, C#, C++, Java, React, of course, React, Node, all the JavaScript frameworks, as well as DevOps, QA, and other mobile technologies. Okay. During the VanHackathon, how many will you have to answer the challenge? You have to do just one challenge during the VanHackathon. Roshan is asking how often the VanHackathon happens. We used to have this event twice a year. We didn't have any in 2018, and now we're having one in 2019. We do have plans to bring it back for twice a year, but as of now, nothing is confirmed. Okay? Javier is asking when he will know if he was selected. Javier, the final deadline for all candidates to be selected is November 8th. Okay? This is in the VanHackathon's page as well. And Vishal is asking, what is the score that we expect in code verification? At least 70%. Okay? Neetu is asking if they work in group, if they can collaborate in different time zones. Yes. How we can collaborate, I think Carol gave a few good tips about that. You have to be really organized. You have to really break down the tasks, right, Carol?
Yeah. And otherwise, it's a mess.
It's a mess, yeah. But if you are assigned to a group challenge, we will help you create a group, and we will take this into consideration, okay? We'll try to group people who are in similar time zones, so it's easier for you to work together, okay? It's just one challenge per selected person. And José is asking something that I think is meant for you, Carol. He's asking, are there communities for Brazilian people in Canada? I want to try it out, but my wife doesn't speak English, so I'm a bit afraid she will feel lost.
I would say don't worry about that. There are like a lot of Brazilians in Canada. In Vancouver, it's crazy. For example, yesterday we went for a happy hour with Stephanie and other Brazilians. So we kind of get to know each other as you are here. But yeah, we have like a lot of comments, even on Facebook, they have like comments of like Brazilians in Vancouver or Brazilians in Calgary, Brazilians in Toronto. We have like a plan of communities, and people normally like plan gatherings and stuff together. So don't worry about that. We have like a huge Brazilian community here in Canada.
Yeah, and that is the same in most Canadian cities, okay? So Brazilians are a big chunk of the population that immigrates to Canada now. And we are very, Brazilians, right? We like to be together. So like I was saying, yesterday we just met with other, 8 Brazilians to have a really nice happy hour. But also the Brazilian community here organizes a lot of different events throughout the year, and you'll always find like Brazilian restaurants, and we're pretty much spread it out. Just a quick example, one of these days I wanted to open a bank account, and the person who actually opened the bank account for me was a Brazilian person who was living here for quite a while. So, and then the other day I went to a bakery, and I was also, there was also a Brazilian girl there helping me out to choose what I was going to buy. So even if your spouse does not speak English, and that's for everyone, not only for Brazilians, okay? You can live here, okay? Canada is a very multicultural country. Believe me when I say that. So there is pretty much a community for every single nationality here. And also there are very cheap and even sometimes free courses, for free English courses, okay? So for example, if you're coming with a PR, you do have access to free English courses for your spouse until they can learn English, okay? So the opportunities are really, really good, right? If I'm not wrong, the biggest communities here are the Asian communities. We also have Brazilian. We also have many people from Latin America and many Africans from all over, all the different African countries. All right? Okay, perfect. Vahid asking if there's an age limit. There isn't an age limit for anything, okay? Not for the VanHackathon, not for any other event, and not for getting hired for sure, right? In Canada, it is illegal to discriminate candidates against age, and they will never ask your age during an interview. That's right, Carol?
Yeah, that's totally hard, right? And even like Thinkific, it's pushing really hard on this because we have like this ageism concept on tech that some companies like around the world, they kind of discriminate like people that are like overqualified because they have like tons of experience, and we are doing like a lot of push to this not happen. So don't worry about that. There is no age for anything, as Stephanie said. Just apply, and yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and it's the same thing for sex, for sexual orientation, not sex, sorry, for gender, sexual orientation, any kind of disability. Canada is a very, very advanced country in that sense. All right, guys. So just to wrap it up, can you refuse a challenge because of the city? Yes, if you want to just give up and you don't want to do the challenge, we'll then unselect you and reject you from the VanHackathon. Okay. No, you are not going to build a project from your own idea. Okay, the companies will provide and say, this is what we want you to build with all the requirements, with a closed scope, and you have to do something based on that. Okay. Sorry, if it's a group hackathon, for the next stage is the selection is made group-wise or individual level. So the candidates will be evaluated individually, despite of completing the challenge in a group or by themselves. If there are any fees after they were selected, no, VanHack never charges anything from the candidates, okay, guys? You cannot do a challenge from more than one company. Can you be overqualified? Yes, you can be overqualified. That's not a problem. We've seen overqualified candidates getting hired before. And Jojash was asking if there was a QA in your team of the VanHackathon. Was there, Carol?
No, we were just like 4 developers. We didn't have like any designer, any QA, or anything else, just developers.
All right. But for this hackathon, we will have a QA challenge. Okay, so you will be working individually. You will be solving something for a QA engineer. All right. Okay, guys, so I think we are on our time limit. I just wanted to thank Carol very, very much for being here with us today. Carol, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for being so active and helping us out to explain everything to our candidates. I believe you're one of our main success cases because of all the reasons I said before. You are a woman developer. You got hired without even working with all the technologies that your company was working with, but you got hired because you really put in the effort and you really showed an excitement to learn, right? That's why we're so glad and so thankful that you were able to be here today.
Thank you. And everyone, if you have like any question about VanHackathon or even about like Thinkific and how we work or anything, just let Stephanie or me know. We will like be pretty happy to answer the questions and also apply because we have tons of open positions. And yeah, hope to see you soon.
That's true. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.